Right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. 3.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Kimber. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and it's Wellness Wednesday. Our topic today is going to be what seems like a very minor topic to most people, but it's a very major topic, or it should be a very major topic to you, and that's on sleep. So, quick poll. First of all, I'd love to know where you're listening from. So in the comments, let me know where you're listening from. But with that, let me know how many hours of sleep you got last night. It's not abnormal to hear people to say, I got 5 hours of sleep last night. I got 6 hours of sleep. It's almost like it's a trophy about how well or how successful you can be based on the least amount of sleep that you can get. But is that really a trophy? Is that really what we want? Is that really healthy for our body? Actually, studies show that it is not. So that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about that. We're seeing, studies are showing that Americans are sleeping at 1.5 to 2 hours less per night than they did 50 years ago. All right, so in 1960, the average sleep duration was about 8.5 hours. Now, by 2008, that had dropped to 6 hours and 40 minutes. And our teenagers are some of the worst offenders in that category. Studies are showing that teenagers are sleeping oftentimes less than 7 hours a night when they actually need 9 or more hours. So parents, if you think that your teenagers don't sleep or are sleeping too much, it's probably not the case. They need 9 or more hours of sleep. They're not getting it. Their schedules are way too busy, or the screen time that they're on is causing them not to sleep as long as they need to. Whatever might be the case, we have seen that our society is a society that is really seeming to reward a sleepless behavior. And we have to get away from that because sleep definitely impacts our bodies. And we're going to dive into that. Ellie, great to have you here. I see you slept 9 hours. Yay, Ellie. Good job. Again, how many hours did you sleep last night? What is your average night of sleep? All right, so let's talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is how sleep affects our hormones. Now, our hormones control everything in our body, and sleep and hormones are very much intimately connected in that. But our hormones control things like our metabolism and our weight, our mood, our mental health, immune function, our energy, our focus, our reproductive, the aging process. So hormones control a ton of things in our body. And if we are not getting enough sleep, it's definitely going to impact those hormones. So I want to break down some of our key hormones and how they are affected by sleep. So we have a growth hormone. Now, our growth hormone is released primarily during deep sleep, especially at the first part of the night. And the growth hormone is critical for tissue repair, muscle growth, and metabolism. It also helps us with our recovery phase. It helps us to not age as fast. So when we don't sleep enough and this impacts our growth hormone, we will have accelerated aging. We will find that we will have a more difficult time in recovery, and we will find that we are storing our fat even more. So you're going to see increased fat storage. I mean, isn't that something? So many of us are striving to have thinner bodies or to look better or less fat around our middles. And it could be coming down to that you're just not sleeping enough. Now, the other hormone that is very much affected by a lack of sleep or sleep, enough sleep, is your stress hormone, and that is your cortisol. Now cortisol follows a particular rhythm. It's a natural rhythm. It's called a diurnal rhythm, and it's highest in the morning and then it's lowest at night. But poor sleep actually disrupts this pattern. And so we can see where your cortisol should be low at night, it can be high at night, and that actually disrupts how well you can sleep in the evening or through the night. It also increases your blood sugar. It causes more weight gain. It creates anxiety and just other things like a reduced immunity, things like that. So cortisol is needed to be in this particular diurnal pattern, very dependent on a good night's sleep. The other hormones are your hunger hormones, your leptin and your ghrelin. Believe it or not, just one night of poor sleep can actually disrupt these hormones. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. And when we don't get enough sleep, studies will show that it can actually increase by 28%. And leptin is your satiety hormone. And when we don't get enough sleep there, we can see that it can actually decrease by 18%. Fascinating, right? So, how many of you have felt with a poor night of sleep that you're actually hungrier and you just can't seem to get full? Because a lack of sleep and a high ghrelin, a low leptin, creates this persistent hunger, especially for carbohydrates. Research also shows us that people who get a less amount of sleep, a lack of sleep at night, will consume 300 to 500 more calories a day, just trying to fuel their bodies because of this ghrelin and this leptin not being optimized due to lack of sleep. Interesting, isn't it? Now, another hormone that is affected by our sleep tremendously is insulin. Sleep loss reduces your insulin sensitivity by 20 to 25%. So those of you that are struggling, again, to lose weight, it could come down to just not getting a good, proper sleep, enough sleep, and deep sleep, and how important that is. So what does a lack of insulin or a high insulin mean? Well, what that means is that your cells can't properly use the glucose. When that happens, your risk for diabetes actually increases tremendously. In my practice, when I work with patients who are what is called insulin resistance, we oftentimes, what I'll tell them is, think of yourself, you're not diabetic, but you're pre-diabetic. You are setting yourself up to become diabetic. So before that happens, when you still have choices, think of your lifestyle as a diabetic lifestyle. Cut down the sugars, really focus on the sleep, get good exercise, decrease the carbohydrates. So here's another interesting fact. So 5 nights of poor sleep can give a non-diabetic person, a pre-diabetic blood sugar. So 5 nights of short sleep. All right, so we definitely want to guard our sleep. It's incredibly important, sleep is, to the body. Now, I also get the opportunity to work with patients who are wanting to have a baby. Maybe they are struggling with some infertility, or they want to get their bodies into an optimal position to have a baby, for the woman to carry the baby and the man to help create that baby. Both men and women, when they have a lack of sleep, they can experience hormonal production or issues with poor sleep. Women, you may notice that your PMS is worse, that your cycles are more irregular, that you have worsened menopause symptoms. And then men, you can notice that you have reduced testosterone production. So sleep definitely impacts that reproductive system and your reproductive hormones. I always say, if you're trying to conceive, sleep is a major critical factor in that process of conception. So hormones and sleep, super critical. They really go hand in hand. You can do a lot of self-healing just by getting proper sleep. But I want to talk about a few other things because maybe the hormone topic just didn't trip your trigger. So let's talk about a few other things that are very common, very prevalent out there right now. And I see a lot of in my practice. The first is mental health. So you're saying, Dr. Kimber, how can sleep affect mental health? Well, sleep deprivation actually increases anxiety by 30%. So if you find that you are struggling with anxiety more often than you have in the past, just stop and ask yourself, am I getting enough sleep? It also increases the risk for depression 10 times the amount. In my practice, I see many patients with anxiety and depression. They want something. They're going to their doctors. Their doctors are giving them, their traditional medicine, Western doctors are giving them sleep medication, anxiety medication, depression medication. They don't want to be on that, so they see me. The number one thing we start with is proper sleep. It's so important. So ask yourself, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, your mood is less, you just don't feel like yourself, what is your sleep like? All right, the next thing is immune function. Are you constantly sick, constantly catching whatever is going around? Whatever the kids get, you get. Whatever that's at work, you pick up. During sleep, your immune system releases cytokines and antibodies. So if you are not getting enough sleep, you could be finding yourself getting or being more susceptible to immune issues by up to 70%. That's kind of huge. That means that whatever is common around you, your body is going to struggle to fight off. So that sleep absolutely matters with your immune system. And then your heart health, your cardiovascular health. We've got to talk about that as well because sleep and your cardiovascular health are incredibly important together. Chronic sleep deficiency increases your risk for high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, irregular heartbeat. So it matters. So in the beginning, I said a lot of times we're giving out these trophies for this lack of sleep. Like, I can be successful on only a couple of hours of sleep. Or, how did you get this project done? Well, I didn't sleep the last 3 days, but I got the project done. Think about now that next statement about what's happening in your body and how your body took a major hit in order to get that project done and be successful. But are you going to have a heart attack? Are you going to have a spare tire around your waist? Are you going to have immune system? You're going to catch the next cold that's out there? Those are all the things that you're sacrificing when you are not getting proper sleep. So maybe you're saying to me, but Dr. Kimber, I go to bed and I just can't seem to sleep well, or I'm just not tired. I just don't know what's wrong with me. So let's talk about some things on helping you get a good night's sleep. The first thing I'm going to say is it's got to be priority. Absolutely priority. I mean, everybody knows. Your friends know. your kids know, your spouse knows, at 9 o'clock at night, I'm in bed. I am either getting ready for bed or I'm on my way to bed, because you want to be to sleep by 10 p.m. The perfect sleep time or amount of time is 10 p.m. at night to 6 a.m. in the morning. Now, I know for some of you, that's like you're not going to bed till midnight and you can't hardly get up at 7. So it starts with just making those slight adjustments. Start getting up a little earlier in the morning, maybe 30 minutes earlier, because you're going to find that you're going to be more tired at night and your body's going to be ready to go to sleep. So then you ask yourself, well, why can't I go to sleep at night? Well, light exposure is a huge factor. So things like your blue light from your screens. So are you on the TV? Are you on your computer? Are you on your phone? They actually suppress the melatonin production. So you really want to shut off those screens, or you want to get some blue light blocking glasses. And then we also, our modern LED lights, our big lights overhead and in our homes and whatnot, they can actually disrupt that circadian rhythm. So by using things like red light, don't turn those big lights overhead on at night. Have little table lamps that you have red light bulbs in and turn those on. And that's going to help actually to balance that circadian rhythm, help your body to prepare to go to sleep when the sun goes down. Then there's other things when it comes to light, like, well, what does your bedroom look like? Do you have what is termed light pollution in your bedroom? What is light pollution? Well, night lights, curtains that don't close all the way or block out the light, things that are plugged in that give off a glow, a lighted glow. Those are all things that fall under light pollution, and believe it or not, can actually affect your ability to fall asleep. So really assess, what kind of light am I surrounding myself with in the evening? So consider 5 o'clock as the transition time. Now, I know many of you don't even get home till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. That's okay, but 5 o'clock is still the transition time for the evening. So what can you do after 5 o'clock to help with that transition time? Then another thing is, many of you have such irregular sleep schedules. So on the weekends, you're going to bed at 1 a.m. and on the weekdays, you're going to bed at 10 p.m. and it's, all over the board. And I know some of you work night shifts. Some of you that are health professionals, you're working, 3 night shift hours on, however it might be. But what you have to realize is that those varying times, they disrupt your body's internal clock, and your body gets really confused and therefore is going to have a more difficult time when you try to go to bed at a decent time if you've been not going to sleep at a normal time. All right, so you really want to try to keep things as consistent as possible, even on the weekends. Start even with getting up at the same time so that when your body is ready to go to bed on time in the evenings. Another thing that can really make a huge difference is the temperature of your bedroom. The perfect sleeping temperature is between 62 and 68 degrees. So maybe right in there, find what works best for you. I know for me, 64 degrees is the temperature that my husband and I like to have in our bedroom. That's where we sleep the best. So find your perfect temperature between 62 and 68 degrees. Anything warmer than 68 is going to disrupt your core body temperature, and it's not going to be able to get cool enough to fall into that deep sleep. Now, another thing we have to consider when we have sleeping issues, or in order to get a good night's sleep, is the EMF exposure that in our bedrooms. So your electronic devices emit electromagnetic frequencies, and they actually can disrupt your cellular function, which then interferes with your melatonin production, which then interferes with your sleep quality. So for many of us, we need to unplug our cell phones or turn them on airplane mode, have them in another room, and try to unplug many things that are plugged into our home. And I will just mention right here that for some of you that can't unplug a lot of things, maybe possibly grounding sheets or a grounding mat is something that you want to bring into your bedroom so that you can at least sleep grounded, which helps negate some of that EMF exposure that you're getting. All right. Stress and anxiety definitely interrupt the sleep. So if you are finding that you have this inner stress going on and you are not sleeping well, you're having bad dreams, and that inner stress can come from relationships, it can come from overspending, finances, spiritual. It can come from a lot of different areas. Then maybe get in tune with what's causing that stress and ask yourself what you can do about that. I'm always available. You can always reach out. I will put a link for a Discover call that you can actually follow, and we can have a one-on-one conversation together, because if you're finding that this stress is overtaking your life, that your sleep quality is so poor, then maybe we need to have a discussion. All right. Sometimes I'll go through the list with patients and I'll see that, all of these things they're doing really well. But there's one area that they're not doing great in, and that is dietary. They love their coffee or their caffeine, whatever it might be. It's not always coffee. Sometimes it's Dr. Pepper, things like that. And they literally think that they can consume it all day long. And that's just not the truth. It absolutely will disrupt